Ryan, I don't know if you shared this. We're doing an event at IT Nation. We got selected to do, and SaaS Alerts will be there. They'll
Awesome.
be one of the card dealers. We're doing this event. ConnectWise selected us and Right Up Boom and four other communities. I put it in chat for you. Just give it to your folks that are going to IT Nation. They can just register and join us. It's an after party after the first night kickoff. So
Okay.
SaaS will be there and some of the other
Fun, a casino night.
yeah, exactly. In it's in honor of the fact that we're having ours at the I was gonna say, newly renovated or newly exfiltrated MGM.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
we just had one of our engineers go to a Magic the Gathering tournament in Las Vegas last weekend, and he was observing some of the differences in how the city's reacted since the incident. It
Yeah,
was kind of interesting.
yeah. All right, Michelle, should we get going?
Yeah, let's kick it off.
Okay. I'll share out my screen on your behalf, even though I think we have, like you said, some marketing updates. I think product wanted to share one or two things if I remember. But we'll start off with this. But welcome everybody to the Sassy Call. Is Jim joining us till 1:30 or no?
Jim he's got a 1 o'clock and a 1:30 that he's got to do.
Oh, he's not joining. Okay. I thought he said he was joining for a half hour. So Michelle, kick us off here. Talk to us about what's going on with FortiFest.
Sure. So last week and in the newsletter we mentioned, now through the end of October, we are going to be doing FortiFest, which is, it's basically a contest, but it's really, really easy to join. All you have to do is use Fortify. And so we're going to be picking 3 winners at the end of the month. And they will each get $500 for themselves and then $500 for the food bank of their choice. So we'll be picking, like I said, 3 winners in the following categories. The first partner to reach a secure score of 100%. The largest change in overall secure score across an MSP's entire client base. They do have to have a minimum of 10 organizations connected to qualify for that one. And then the highest percentage of connected clients as it relates to their total number of clients. So like I said, the only thing you have to do to participate is use Fortify. And we will announce the winner on the November 16th Sassy Call right here. So I hope you'll join us then.
I could see this, Michelle, I could see some MSPs clients, being on board, like, have philanthropic type, for lack of a better word, affinity. And do you have something they could, turn into customer facing, if you will, that, hey, we're going to do this. We want to win, not only to help you, but, help out.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have anything now, but I can absolutely do that. Is that something you guys are interested in? Would you be willing to share that and just let folks know? Yes, 100% is possible. Eric, I saw Eric's question. So reach for the stars. Yeah, I can definitely put something together for you for that.
It's up to them. I was just thinking really based on their feedback, Michelle. So if they don't feel it would benefit, I don't want you to do extra work.
What do you guys think?
Beneficial, so I vote for it.
All right, cool. Great. Yeah, I can definitely put that together.
Very cool.
Great.
Leron, on the product side, did we have anything we wanted to just kind of update or?
Yeah, so we have a couple things. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm going to review something. It's going to take just a couple minutes, and then Amanda has a quick update. So I will begin with a screen share.
Yeah, of course.
So thanks to the feedback that we've been getting from the community, we've come to understand that when we're doing something like an account management cleanup or setting respond rules based on the account that we previously had last sign in here. And here, last activity was previously last sign in. And right, just a quick recap, right? What account management does is that this is a tool that we built that when I run this query here, guest accounts, right? So all organizations, all guest accounts, last activity is more than 30 days ago. This was previously last sign in. And then it's showing me all the account, right? Is that we basically learned that if you have an Outlook local setup, you may not have a user who has signed in a really long time. And this would basically trigger, or it would show results of people who just haven't signed in. So we've swapped out our last sign in logic with last activity logic so that if a user is uploading files or sharing documents or doing anything along those lines, they're going to generate last activity. And the reason that we made this change is in order to prevent Outlook type of local users who don't ever sign into the web from getting blocked, right? So it's a small, subtle change, but we had some support tickets where users and accounts were getting unexpectedly locked out because of this sort of thing. And so this is a more accurate way to measure whether or not you have an active user. So you're going to see this small change on account management. Last activity here, this column is last activity. And then when you create a respond rule, it's last activity here. I'm going to pause here and see if we have any questions on this. Okay. I don't see any questions. I'm going to stop sharing and hand things off to Amanda.
Thanks, Leron. So I'll actually start sharing then too. So today I wanted to talk to everybody about the billing details report. We've made a couple of adjustments to it to hopefully make it a little bit more usable for you. Right now you should be able to see the list of reports in the reports module. So if you scroll down to the billing details underneath operational reports, you will now see that the billing details report actually loads with a required date. And right now it's defaulting to 9/2023. This is because we are now going to take a daily snapshot of the accounts per day. And so when we turn this feature on Monday, it started the snapshots on Monday. So you'll only be able to do the billing details report from Monday, September 25th and onwards. So when you click on the little icon for the calendar to select your date, well, I'm in dev, so it has a few more dates, but if you're in prod, you'll only see Monday the 25th as your earliest available date. But you can start picking any of these days to get the snapshot. The snapshot will be representative of what existed for the accounts for that date you're selecting. So you pick your date, you click run report. And now the other changes to the report are you'll have your date of your report, which is the date that you're running it. So today is the 28th. And so then I get the 28th here. And then the other change is now it says billing date. And this will be reflective of the date that you are billed by SaaS alerts. And so the idea here is that you're able to run this report any of the days in the month leading up so that you can check what your accounts are. So you can plan for what you'd like for to be billable according to your bill date. And then you'll also be able to go back in time. So once you're billed in September and you're now in October and you want to say, hey, like, what did we really have? I can't remember, we made some adjustments. You could actually run that report now for the previous date. So you can come back and pick an earlier date and run the report again. Any questions on those updates? All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Amanda. Before we jump into our, story time today, any feedback? Just open for, now that Fortify has been out a bit, or, which has had a lot of the spotlight, but any feedback or comments on anything that you'd like to discuss with the team, the product team, since they're here? think we got everybody post lunch, Chip. Here's what everybody has to do. Either one, take a 1 minute and do 10 burpees, or two, go get coffee. Post haste. All right.
Choice.
You can do both, Ben.
Oh gosh, at the same time?
10 burpees while getting coffee will not end well.
No, and I don't want to see it either.
All right, let me share out my screen here. So Jason, I'm glad you joined us, and I see Eric Woodard on. I love Eric. So again, this is let me just, can you guys, I know you're seeing the FortiFest. Do you see, if I
You can see
switch,
your takeaways, looks like your regular PowerPoint is up.
is that, you can see this now?
Agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, agenda.
You done it? Okay, good. So we got there. All right, I'm going to keep it in this view as normal for everybody. But so I asked, Jason Hahn to jump on here, Chip to jump in, and Eric, I'd love for you, because Woodard, this will be an interesting one for you as well. We're going to unpack something that recently happened, and I want open Q&A. This isn't, hopefully just sitting back and taking it all in. I really love your feedback on what you do in certain pieces of this, and really collaborate with us, because I think this is incredibly real and relevant to you or your customer. All right, so let's get on into it. So Chip, you guys manage service accounts, correct?
We do.
Does anybody ever tell you not to monitor them?
No, the only thing anyone's ever asked us to do is to not have them pay for them. So I'll give you, for instance, so somebody uses Veeam Cloud backup for all of their tenants, and they have a commonly named Veeam service account, and if they'll send us that name, we will remove that. We will flag it as a non-billable account type, because we understand that that's, there's no human user there. We do still monitor them. In the way we intake data, we pull in all of the data that's coming from Microsoft or Google or whatever other product for every account. And we made a decision a long time ago not to trash data and throw it out, even if it's for an account that is technically unmonitored. But there's very little activity, because the one other side impact of something like a Veeam or any kind of a backup, some of those products will behave in a way that they will throw alert events for high file activity. So we exclude them from those events as well, so just to make them less noisy.
Okay, very cool. So Eric Woodard, in your estimation, we're talking about another inventory account management. Is that 5? Keep me honest here. Control 5, Control 6. Are you there? I thought I saw Eric Woodard.
Yeah, account control is number 5.
Okay, thank you, sir. So service accounts, one of those inventories. Do you find a lot of your peers managing inventory around those?
No, I mean, I think I've said this before. Inventory is one of the easiest hard things we do.
Yep.
The inventory of everything is difficult, especially when it's not your organization. So I have yet to take over an account from another MSP that had an inventory of all users, all devices, or all service accounts.
Yeah. So this I'm sure you guys have read this, but what are your thoughts so far on this kind of allegory? A service account. Anybody have a service account out there connected to a server? You do, Andy. Okay. So this one, you can't hear you, but
said, imagine that. I have a service account on a server.
So this one in particular led to just simple cyber hygiene, right, Eric? Led to pretty big ransomware takeover. Very quickly, interestingly, only 200 devices. And you can see some of the ramifications of it so far. But let's dig into this a little deeper. This city of Dallas Jason Hahn, because you've worked with a lot of cities in the state of Texas, I believe, banks, cities. They were, that overarchingly taking things seriously, right? And here's the point, right? You have an organization increasing their budget, doubling to $7.8 million, pretty decent size staff dedicated to security, and their security controls. I'll make sure everybody gets the after action report that they had to write up and deliver, which is public. The city of Dallas had to do that. They have pretty darn good security controls. And Jason, what's your experience now with the cities, especially after some of them getting hit and the agencies? It seems like they are spending money and taking things seriously.
Some of them are taking it fairly seriously. And then you have the other hand where it turns into a giant budget fight between the various departments and entities within the city about where the money is going to get spent. I don't know if they're trying to pull grant money down from, say, DHS or something like that, but they're definitely, I won't say becoming more security aware, but they're paying more attention to their security awareness. Is a way to phrase it. And we've seen more requests come in for, quote, security related things such as 2FA at the workstation level, additional 2FA across for servers and directory services and stuff like that. Now they tend to balk at some of the pricing, whether we do it or not, but we're definitely seeing more requests come across along the lines of enhancing and hardening their security and their applications.
Yeah, so it's just curious, show of hands, Michelle, maybe you can just look in chat for me. Who works with state, local, territorial, tribal, SLTTs, commonly known from CIS, municipalities? Anybody? What are we seeing there, Michelle?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
Typers.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, again, just, about a year ago, and you haven't seen much about it, but if you do, does anybody work with that space on this call? I'm surprised not one person, but remember there was a $4 billion granted by CISA over time to the states, which flowed down to all these agencies. So that, to keep that in mind. So here's what happened. The Royal Ransomware group infiltrated, right, the Dallas networks. They did it through a service account. And then, this is the part that, I want us to clue in on, because I think, again, show of hands, does anybody ever say, we don't have anything our client, we don't have anything a threat actor wants? Has any MSP ever heard that from their clients?
I literally just had a net new, after they got attacked, client tell us, we don't understand, we don't think we have anything valuable. And they got hit by Akira.
Got it. Anybody else hear that, Michelle? Or are we seeing anything in chat about that?
We are not seeing anything in chat. No.
Okay. Yeah. So often,
sorry, Ryan.
Yeah. So often we hear those types of things, right? And it's interesting if you look at, what the organization did. In essence, the city of Dallas could say, well, they don't have anything that we'd want, yet the services they're providing basically cease to exist. So when we get to a slide coming up here, I want you to start to think about your customer supply chains, the SLAs they may have with their customers, the SLAs your customer might have with their customers. Does that make sense? Questions so far? Comments?
Perfectly makes sense.
Yeah. So I think it's really important for us as MSPs to start to understand the attack patterns. And what we're seeing is very, again, on the cyber call, when we had Philip Langlois, one of the principal authors of the Verizon data breach report, come on, one of the questions we asked him was, so what's new and exciting? What's revolutionary going on in the world of threat actors these days? And his answer was, sadly, I wish I could tell you it was something unique, but it's the tried and true and the same old, right? This is a hygiene thing, right? That probably was missed from an inventory perspective. They forgot about it. It was probably brute force. The service account was probably brute forced. The threat actors moved very quickly. And the other reason this is really important is in terms of your customers' profiles. If you have high target customers, does anybody, Michelle, just be my eyes again in chat? Do you have finance, healthcare? Again, any type of government, schools, etc. If you have, anybody have that type of stuff?
Yep. It looks like Ryan, Eric, and I saw Andy had his hand up too.
Okay, so you got to start to think about, again, what we're charging. And I'm not saying, don't take this as Andrew said, go do threat modeling and start doing red teaming, right? What I am saying is these are the conversations that, use these as actual role, conversations with your customers, right? These groups are targeting municipalities because they understand the services they offer, the amount of data they have, and they can exfiltrate, and the pain they can inflict. And again, look at what happened. Service account, brute forced into the organ. So far, hey, Ben, you're part, a pretty good tradecraft dude. Given enough time, could you brute force a service account?
Yeah, I was just saying that some people when they set up service accounts will actually put the password in the description of the account. And so only thing you really need is just some basic Active Directory read permissions.
Right. And we've had Bo on enough, right, Chip, to talk about how he does recon, how he figures stuff out. And from that perspective, fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, I'll give you one more reason why we see an increase in the proliferation of SLTT or SLED or whatever you want to call it. It didn't take long for attackers to figure out that these are easy targets because you have understaffed, overworked, and often undertrained people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay attention to what most of us would just consider the basics.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I think the other thing too is when you think about a municipality, just start to think about EPHI and the number of records that they have. People that are underprivileged, if you will, if I hope I'm using the term correctly, Chip, but getting services, healthcare services, right, through the state or through the city, right? Jason, do the cities get that? When you talk to them, do they care, quote unquote, when you're talking to the IT and security teams?
They care, but it kind of boils down to funding. The cities and municipalities as well. But here down, and then maybe this is like endemic to all school districts, but like a lot of the school districts, their guys are underworked, underpaid, understaffed. And that's one of the ones that we've had a couple incidents at, because these poor guys are running around making sure printers work for teachers.
Right.
They can barely keep up with that.
Which interestingly is when you say printers, interestingly, and I did a LinkedIn post about it. That's how finally everybody know, by the way, is all the printers had pushed out a note that very sarcastic. It's okay. We'll help you. You probably, you shouldn't be upset. You probably just didn't invest enough in security. I'll put in my LinkedIn post. But again, this is where human behavior is so interesting to me, Jason. This organization might have said to you, like, yeah, we don't have the funding. Well, what happens on this side? Where are you getting that? Because that's how much they're in the respond and recover phase right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've done a couple of recover phases for some non-managed clients in the last 6 months where, if they just budgeted some additional stuff for some additional security and some training and some policies, they wouldn't be 500 grand into a forensic remediation and incident response.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, one of the quotes for some of the security we quoted for these guys was far less than $500,000 that they've spent so far. And that's just, I'm talking some new infrastructure and some of the forensics and incident response stuff, not the lost business time and profitability from their guys not being able to work for a week.
Yeah, no doubt. I've been working in Chad. Yeah, Chad, can you come on and chat? I'm trying to multitask. Chip, Edie, give us your input, please, Chad. Love to hear it. So far.
I got here late, so are we talking about something specific?
No, it's okay, but give us a background. You said you've been working in IT, so.
Yeah, I'm a hands-on IT director for a small school district since I was in college. And I kind of gone through all the different iterations, new security needs and what have you over the years. So I don't know if there's anything specific you guys wanted to know, but I make it work on a shoestring budget. It can be done.
Yeah. No,
I think that's
whenever.
exactly the thread that we're pursuing right at the moment, Chad, is that one of the challenges faced by education and small government, even large government, is the budget challenge, right? And so it's very difficult. They've got to make a trade-off between fixing potholes and investing in IT. And that challenge is what leads to additional security problems. So to the extent that you want to comment on that, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can. So with E-rate funding, we actually don't qualify for much. We're too urban for rural grants. We're too rural for urban grants. We don't have any free and reduced lunch, which is how you get a lot of your federal funding. So we're in a weird scenario. Specifically, like finding money. Sometimes we get some donations here and there, but it can be done. You can afford what you need with school board buy-in, and I've been really lucky to have that. If I recommend something, usually we've been able to do it. They trust that my recommendations are reasonable and not just toys that I'd like to play with. And then the rest of it is figuring out what free and open source tools are worth my time investment versus just buying something, which is a big thing that I've learned over time, kind of where what things kind of fit into that or not.
Yeah, Andy, hold that thought once. Andy, I just want to kind of wrap this up because, and maybe even comment here, Chad. So your service account, and then they're using legitimate tools, right? We're commonly called living off the land, which aren't necessarily immediately going to get flagged. Certainly not get flagged by traditional AV, but then from behavioral perspective, do you have eyes on EDR enough, right? Again, we talk about staffing where now all of a sudden you're going to pick this kind of stuff up. Not easy, right? So last thing here, and then Andy, we'll go to your question, is what I really want you guys to all consider, and we'll come to, I'd love your input after we go to Andy, is, so this was your client. You start to, let's just say they're not fully encrypted yet. You start to get some weird indicators and alerts on your EDR, or maybe Chip and team reach out to you. Hey, we're seeing something kind of weird. Do you know where your MSA ends and your IR starts? Do your clients know? Is it clear? In most MSPs I talk to, it's not too clear. So we'll come back to that question in a minute. Andy, what do you got?
I was basically saying each week I come on the SASE call, and when you have discussions like this, it's really educating me in the storytelling of this. And to have a resource that would allow us to communicate this story, I'm basically learning how to communicate more effectively with prospective customers and customers all around this. And having that as a real resource would be I think, truly helpful. So that was really the observation here.
Well, just in can't, I mean, if you think about it, right, sales is stories.
Yeah, but what I'm getting is we've got an actual case. You're mapping out. If you don't have the budget and you're in the school district to implement a security thing, your question's incredibly valid. Hey, if you don't have the budget to prevent it, how in the hell are you going to fix it when it happens?
Yeah, right. So that and we're going to get into this with your clients, because again, your clients tell you all the time we don't have money, and yet we've talked about this on the SaaS Alerts call many times, right, Chip? Where it was, again, I forget who it was. It was on this call, one of the MSPs that has advertising clients, who had been suggesting, a bunch of security stuff, and it wasn't until the advertising the customer, who had an audit by their customer and said, who's touching your stuff and what controls do they have? And then voila, budget appeared out of nowhere. So there's always money. It's our job to unlock it. Comments there, Chip, by the way, on that?
Yeah, so what you just described, Andrew, was what I call the opportunistic spend, right? Someone's not going to necessarily do what they're being told they need to do, especially from a security perspective, because that doesn't feel like anything's broken unless they're pushed to do it. And you just outlined the perfect instance where, it doesn't even have to be an advertising agency, any business that has attracted a new customer, but that new customer has a better understanding of security requirements than the provider does. And all of a sudden they get asked to prove, okay, well, what do you have here? We do a vendor review. So if you're going to be our vendor, you need to demonstrate that you're paying attention to your security environment, because you're going to be managing data for us. And then all of a sudden, since it's opportunistic, now there's revenue behind it. They're willing to spend the money. I've seen that lots and lots of times over my own career. And to be 100% candid, which I don't mind being with this group, that is literally what started me on my journey in information security as a specialty. I was running a business and had a great client that grew very, very quickly, and they were actually the bulk of our business. And they went public. Well, that just kicked our little MSP up into an entirely different realm of our own compliance and our own demonstration of our own maturity. And we probably wouldn't have done it, or even been even taken the time to be aware of the importance. Now we're going back into the late 90s, early 2000s here. So this is ancient history, but it was that event that really launched me personally on this entire journey. And I think that happens both to MSPs, but also more importantly to their customers all the time. So the thing that I've learned is to try and help people understand that waiting for the opportunity to present itself has an opportunity cost, because it may cost you a lot, just like it did the city of Dallas along the way, if you don't pay attention to the fundamentals of system security. And when I say systems, I don't mean just electronic systems. I mean processes in the building and how people handle information paper-wise, and whether or not you're doing regular security reviews. Like all of the human resource process around this is part of the system. And those are the things that people just don't like to invest in.
Yeah. Well, and it's the reason, again, we struggle getting to $250 a seat, because to tell a customer or a potential customer, hey, why is your competitor 150 and you're 250? To say, well, there's this thing called hygiene. And to your point, Andy, if you could tell a story, let me tell you a story. Let me pull out a good example of why I have to charge you what seems like a lot, but really based on your payroll, if you think about it, do you care whether it's $4,500 or $3,500 a month if I'm doing my job and could prevent this? You know what I mean? Like you be careful, right? You'll never have it, but you get the nuance there, right? To be able to tell the story. So who's brave enough to talk about this? Go ahead. Who had a comment? Sorry. Someone had a comment? No, thought I started. Who wants to talk about this? Okay, because again, I ask this question a lot when I'm presenting. And this is a tough one. Anybody agree or disagree?
No, I mean, I agree it's a tough one because it's, it's never a good conversation to have. Getting past those initial challenges during the conversation. And, flipping back to the MSA conversation real quick, we're actually going through that part right now. Where does our MSA start and stop when it comes to incident response? We're running through that exercise right now because there's a lot of liability when we start doing incident response and we're not sanctioned by the insurance companies and whatnot. So I see Andy's got his hand up there.
Yeah. Well, one second, let me just comment on that, Jason. I'm glad you brought it up because this is the area where if you're not really crystal clear with your customers now about, hey, and if I've said this to you before, I always think of this. I'm not going to say who the MSP is, but I think they do it really, really well, probably better than anyone I've ever seen. Is they are very clear with every customer. They sit down with them and explain that our managed service agreement, when there is a IT incident, we will do here, and here. We will come up to this point. If we feel something nefarious in nature is going on and we've spent this amount of time on it, that's when it ends. We have a third party, this IR firm that we have a relationship with. They charge $600 an hour. We don't mark it up. We're going to call them in. They have a minimum of an hour. They're going to validate or invalidate what's going on. You will get a bill for that. They've yet to get pushback. Right? Why? Because the customer knows clearly that MSP has their best interest in mind and they've thought this through very well and can, articulate case studies like this to say, look, every minute, if there was something, every moment that's going on that we don't recognize that there is actually a security incident, that gives the threat actor that much more time. Right? So, and you can use something like this. This is from NIST, right? This is their life cycle to say, like, that's what we're talking about here, right? We'd love to do more preparation for you here, right? A boom type stuff, tabletops, IR plans. We're going to talk about business impact analysis. We have a window. If we think there's something going on here, and Chip, this is where you guys see stuff all the time, right? We have a window. If somebody's in, right, we don't want to start moving right. Right? We want to isolate ideally before they can get into other devices, hosts. So Andy, you had a comment.
I was just going to say thank you because I had never really thought about how this affects my contract, my MSA, and I'm grateful for this story.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So Andrew, let me comment on this a little bit because you're bringing this up, so we can all help each other, right? Communicating to help each other. And the observation that I have on this and that I've experienced over time is the reason this is such a difficult conversation is because to the customer, it feels like a closed loop. On the one hand, you're telling them you're going to pay us $350 a user because we're excellent at providing security. And then on the other hand, you're telling them, but if there is an incident and an incident response is required, that's going to be an additional charge. So now the customer says, well, wait a minute, if we're paying you, there's not going to be an incident, right? You got to guarantee us that there won't be an incident. And that's where a discussion, an education moment happens with a customer around things like zero-day exploits or Microsoft 365, the whole June incident that got disclosed in July. Like there are things that happen that as good as we are as your MSP and as good as our track record is, we can't anticipate everything that's going to happen. This is a highly flexible environment. Let's put it that way. The threat environment is constantly changing. And even the best experts in the world can't respond to everything and create a patch. And Andy, Andrew, I emailed you earlier today. I don't even know if you saw it. You know, there's a really vicious 0-day vulnerability that was disclosed in the last couple of days, discovered by Apple researchers, that literally affects every single device that your customers are using, all of your web browsers, many of the SaaS applications that you use. And it's buried so deeply that even the investigators who've discovered it haven't really bottomed out just how far and wide it could be an issue. So exactly. Yep, Chad, you got it. So just a recommendation here to everyone, if you haven't done it yet, it's imperative that you get to all your customers and tell them you gotta update iOS, Mac OS, Windows, Chrome, everything under the sun for this specific vulnerability. People are, and even that update isn't going to get you all the way where you need to go. There's going to be more. But this is, one of these instances that you can use as a teaching moment that say, this is why the MSA comes up so far, right? Our MSA includes us making you aware of these things and doing everything we can. But look at how 0 days work. They were named that way by the industry for a reason. It's kind of a get out of jail free card, right? It's the whole security industry, the malware industry, saying, oh, look, this happened and no one knew about it. And now we've got to scurry around and figure out how to fix it. This is why training is so important. Don't click on links from anyone that you aren't expecting ever. It doesn't matter how tempting it looks. If you get something that's trying to get you to buy a product off of Amazon, and I know we're talking consumer stuff here, don't click on the link, go to Amazon.com yourself and search for it. There's just little things that you can train people. But this conversation around our MSA comes up to here, there may be incidents. Hopefully almost everyone on this call can say to their customers, hey, we've never had our customers experience an incident, knock on wood. But sooner or later, an incident will occur somewhere in the ecosystem, and here's the separation.
Yeah.
And I think that, sorry, I think that goes into how your conversation leads off with the customer, and how you present yourself to the customer. Years ago, there was a specific EDR, MDR vendor that said they were 100% effective, and I just turned around and walked away. We tell our sales guys to be very careful. And explain to the customer that while we do our absolute best, nothing is 100% effective. And that is why we have an IR firm to back us up when and if something doesn't happen. Absolutely right, Benjamin. There's no silver bullet. And if somebody says they got it, they're lying. So it's very careful in how you write your MSAs around stuff like that. And put yourself in a position, like Charles said, where you can say, look, we're going to try our absolute best. We shoot for, 95% effectiveness, but due to 0 days and so on and so forth, we can't be. And for that, we have this rider or amendment or whatever to deal with these IR firms or work with your insurance company's IR firms.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah, one more thing to add to Jason's comment, Andrew, and that is that the other education moment that's available here, and Andy, I'm kind of talking to you because you asked, how do we tell these stories? This is where you help your customer understand that the security piece isn't all on you, the MSP. This is a partnership. They have to do their part. And they have to practice good policy and enforce good policy in the organization. Because in the end, we all know that still the biggest vulnerability sits between the seat and the keyboard. So, that component is so important. And we as a community can't control that. All we can do is constantly message to it. And this is another one of those opportunities to message to it.
Yep, absolutely. So interestingly, Chip, I think you were talking about processes, right? And earlier on in the conversation, right? Not just the systems, but what goes on. And again, Michelle, just do show of hands, or someone say, yes or no. Why for yes we're doing them, no for no. But who's doing business impact analysis? This shouldn't, rarely do you look at, it's like one of these things where if you say to somebody, are you doing automated backups? What will most MSPs say, Chip? Are you doing
I was
automated-
multitasking too, so ask that again.
Yeah, are most MSPs doing automated backups?
I think so.
Yeah, of course, right?
Well, I'm going to add to that real quick, Andrew. They may be doing automated backups, but are they actually checking them?
That's a piece of it. But what's interesting, where I was going to go with this, Jason, is in the majority, and I'm saying high 90 percentile of cases that involve MSPs, when IR firms come in, and I know a lot of them, one of the major questions they ask is, so talk to me about what are the critical systems, processes, and data, and where is it? And normally they get a blank stare. So your BIAs are going to inform the maturity of your disaster recovery, right? So this is, again, Andy, coming back to stories. So if I don't understand what critical systems and processes that drive revenue in your business, and we don't bring the stakeholders to the table to figure those out, if there's an incident, we might find out after the fact, and commonly do, that as Jason was saying, we weren't correctly backing things up, or we weren't correctly understanding what was mission critical, or we didn't realize certain information was being pushed to a certain application, right? That's the whole point here. And again, why we should be having these types of conversations now, and why they're expensive, quote unquote, they cost money. Anybody want to comment on BIAs? Anybody doing them?
So we're not necessarily doing BIAs so much as we're doing discovery around, the whole kind of start of the conversation was around asset control and asset inventory, right? That's right up there in some of the SIS stuff, and this stuff is, do you know where your assets lie? And for an attack or recovery, whatnot, I guarantee you the attackers know where your privileged stuff is and your important stuff is. They're doing recon. A lot of customers aren't doing recon, and a lot of customers actually probably couldn't fill out a BIA until after the attack happens. They find out the hard way that they can't do their business anymore, and this is why, type thing. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point. You don't have to know, quote unquote, I haven't been trained in some, Six Sigma process. And I know that's not related to it. My point is, it doesn't have to be that. It's about, when you ask a customer where are your critical assets, they're going to look at you like you have three heads. If you say, you start with, talk to me about how you make money. Who's involved with that? What systems support that? Right? What generates the invoices? What generates the payroll? Who are the suppliers? How do you communicate with them? And you start drawing things out and get them engaged. That's what I'm talking about, right? Now, if you take some courses on this, great, wonderful, that even better. But it doesn't have to be that crazy and people love to talk about their business. Chip, if I sat down and you said, hey bud, you gave me a half hour, I'd really love to understand, so you have a team of coders, walk me through, when you're doing code, where's the important stuff, right? What's really critical to you building this application? And I gotta believe, there's test systems, there's redundant systems, there's, walk me through what's really important to you in your team, right? You'd probably get a little animated, right? If you had trust, right, Chip, you'd go, yeah, we do this is this person, this, right?
That's 90% of my job. So I'd get very animated. The way I used to approach this when I was running an MSP with customers, is I would ask them the question. At that time, I didn't use the phrase digital assets. I would use to say, what technology or computer assets do you have? But the question is, what digital assets that do you have that if you lost are going to put you out of business? That's how you start the conversation and get them. And they're usually going to say, well, nothing. Everything's backed up. Everything's this, everything's that. And again, it's an education moment. It's like, all right, but let's identify the things. Let's not worry about the why or the how you could lose something. Let's just identify what is it that if you lost your customer list, your accounting data, production files, if they're a company that has in-house software that they've written, what are the things that are most important? And you work your way out from that center in sort of concentric logical circles to what's most important to what's least. And that's how you can walk them through without calling it a BIA. That's how you can walk them through the information that you need to construct one.
Yeah, Chip, and I found again that the most, and this comes from Brian Blakely. He runs a $150 million MSP, and he, got a true cyber background. He always talks about, how do you make money? He just dumb it down for me, right? The old, I'm in third grade. How do you make money? Right? Because if I understand how you make money, I understand what systems and people support how you make money and what suppliers and where your data, and then you can start to not only do a BIA, but you can also start to do data flow. Oh, so this stuff comes over here to here, right? So that, which is very critical too. Andy, did you have something? You put your hand up and then
Yeah, I was just saying, this is the opposite of storytelling. This is having them tell me their story.
Yep.
And so it's just it's basically listening to their process and just coming back then and communicating where vulnerability may be.
Yeah. If they say, well, what? Go ahead. Sorry.
So we do a process in my company with some of the larger enterprise customers called BCP, business continuity planning, and it's a long process. It's people in a room for several days, and we pull in department heads and important people from each department, and we go through business continuity planning. Hey, if the accounts payable department was attacked, how does that affect all the other business units, and so on and so forth, right? And it's very long and drawn out, but twice a year we do it with one of our large regional banks, and then we actually do a business continuity test. And then we take our lessons learned from there and go from there. And I'm answering Chad's question here. What's the absolute simplest way to describe cybersecurity? I don't know. That's a good question, man. You have to kind of gauge the temperature of the room, right? If they have somewhat of an understanding, we have some automotive groups. We liken to use automotive terms when we describe it to them. Not easy. Yeah, physical analogy. Charles just said. Try to map it to their silo if you can.
Yeah. The other thing, Chad, I think what's really one or two different analogies, right? You can either use a home and an alarm system. You can use things like, hey, you have doors. Do you keep them open? Right? Do you have an alarm system?
Do you ever go higher level than that?
To maintain your car.
Yeah, do you ever go higher level than that? I like to break it down. Like if someone's to get rid of all of the terms and all of the BS and all of the acronyms and not have to educate anyone on it. Like the common ground for me is I just say, everything can usually be boiled down to opportunity cost. And all cybersecurity is risk management. It's a subset of an opportunity cost. So like I say, my job is to identify what's important to your business, and then what kind of money we should throw at the problem and time to throw at the problem to reduce as much risk as makes sense to do given your type of business, whatever it is that you do and have to do. And then I don't have to say, I'm going to give you an EDR, I'm going to get backups going, I'm going to whatever. I'll propose that based on what I learn about their business, without pretending I know the ins and outs of it yet. I want to learn everyone's business and how it works and what they do daily and who works there and how they operate, because I feel like visibility for me is the most important thing. That's through my tools and everything, but also visibility into who the people are. I like to meet all the people. Because I assess risk quietly based on the answers I get in passing. So I like to meet all the people, which is an advantage for me because I only work with really small businesses where I can actually do that. I know that if you're working with a small business that's got 100 or more people, it's a big ask, but I onboard everybody and I do it one-on-one and I meet people for about 30 minutes and I kind of get to know them. So I try to get visibility and learn the business, but then like my communication, and it seems to work for me so far, but like most recent, my biggest client, he got me on the phone and he just said, I don't want to have a ransomware event. I just want to secure my business. And I said, yes, I can help you with that. And then I didn't want to go deep into these are the things, this is how I'm going to approach it. I said, yeah, I can help you. And let's figure out what it is that you do. What are we protecting? And then have that conversation after that. So it's all me interviewing them really, and not telling them what I need to do for them.
Yeah, I mean, that I couldn't agree more. You talk tech. That's why, again, I start with, how do you tell me about your business? How do you make money, right? And if someone's like, hey, I don't want to have a ransomware event, my question to them would be, Chad, I don't get that question a lot. Why ransomware? Why not business email comp? You know what I mean? I'd want to be inquisitive.
It was a general fear. He's like, I don't want to be in the news. I don't want my business reputation, that kind of a thing. It's just a general fear. It's like, it's going to any other business and saying, I don't want bad thing to happen to my car, to my fleet of vehicles, to my whatever. It's just,
Could be, but I'm just saying, for me, when someone says that, right, I want to be curious, and you probably were, right? But why ransomware? Did he have a friend that had it? Does he know somebody that got ransomed? Did he read some in the paper? My question is, why ransomware versus business email compromise? You know what I mean? That or some other nefarious act. That was just how I would.
I drilled him a little bit on it. And he just said he was generally afraid of those things. And I said, well, that's the best thing that you can tell me as an IT provider, because I start with security and work backwards. So I was like, that's my focus. And then you'll find out that I end up touching a lot of parts of your business you weren't aware that I was going to be touching to provide that security, because it touches everything. I'm like, eventually you're going to start finding that anything you want to do that involves tech, you might as well run it past me first, because otherwise I'm going to come afterward and we're going to have to discuss that, you tried rolling this out or doing this and it ends up not being a secure way to do it. You might as well have just talked to me first. It would have saved some time and money.
Yeah. And he mentioned this one, right there, reputation. So these are the things, when a client says, I have nothing to steal, I have nothing, important, I have nothing valuable, you might want to start to ask them some questions and then bridge things out for them. Hey, can we walk through something? Humor me. You wake up tomorrow, you get a call from your office manager, the first one in. All systems are down. Can we talk about who might be involved? And, have you ever walked through something like this? I'm not trying to overwhelm you there, Chad. Like, you and I role playing. I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but what I find is most people have never thought about, if they were down, what would they do? Who would they call? Do they have regulatory data? Do they have, data that regulators would need to know about? Have they ever spoken to a breach attorney? Do they know what one is? When's the last time they looked at their cyber policy? Do they have enough coverage? How do they know? You told me you don't really feel you have anything, valuable to take. Do you have any agreements with your suppliers, with your customers? What happens if you're on vacation? Who's going to call the shots? Right? If you're an MSP, right? Who's calling the shots? Jason? Right? Oh, it's the service manager. The service manager's sick today too. Now what? So it's bringing the future to the present and just kind of walking them through. Again, hey, I'm not here to overwhelm you. I'm here to scare you. I'm saying, let's walk through it. Who'd you call? What would you do? I'd call you. Okay, I'm glad you'd call me. Remember, I've been asking you about, walking through your incident response plan, and you said, you ever get this as an MSP? Well, you have my incident response plan. Anybody ever get that?
I think Michael's got either a question or a comment.
Yeah, go, Michael.
Yeah, hi. I work with Andy. I'm his son, but I'm listening to a lot of what you guys are talking about from the sales cycle side, and I'm reminded that a lot of the reason we're doing this is to create emotional tie downs to why people need to make decisions. So much of your guys' expertise is built in tech and understanding of the services, but for people that don't have context for it, they don't really know a way to associate it. So I'll give you an example. How many of you guys in here drive? Who drives?
Everyone.
has a car. Everyone has a car. Do some of you have kids?
Yep, of
Do you wear seatbelts when you drive?
course.
How would you find out if you found out that your kids were driving down the highway not wearing seatbelts? Many of you probably feel like your businesses are extensions of your family. So not having the security in place for the things that you care about deeply are ways that you can create connections for people that don't have the context to understand why the service is so important to begin with. And so all the reasons that you're doing these things, you're doing these steps, and you're wanting to go through these processes are not because you need to be seen as experts in your field for why you're valuing yourself and your business the way that you are, but it's so that you can create a value in the prospect's mind for why they need to value you. And if you can't do that by being maybe entirely technically proficient, then creating these emotional ties to these compromises is the way to do that.
Good feedback. I know we're a little past the top of the hour. Michelle, anything we need to cover before we let everybody go?
I don't think so. I know some people, the SASE community call dropped off of their calendars.
Yes.
That was because I had scheduled it out a year in advance, not thinking, but now it's I'm gonna put the link back to the page in there. Now that if you add that to your calendar, it's ongoing forever. We know this is happening forever. And as I was looking back last week, just trying to figure stuff, or last night trying to figure stuff out, I realized next week is going to be 1 year of the SASE call. If you can
Really?
even believe it. Yeah. Looks like we started October 6th, 2022. So I'll have to have a party.
Good.
That's all I have.
Great. Well, I think there's DattoCon next week.
Yes.
So if you're there, look forward to seeing you guys. And until next Thursday, wishing everybody a fantastic week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.